I'm Denise Adams. Welcome to this edition of Powering Progress, a podcast dedicated to discussing sustainability, innovation, and all things that help power progress in North America. On July 14th, Schneider Electric was pleased to collaborate with Miller Electric Company as they broke ground for the nation's first EVIDC, or Electric Vehicle Innovation Design Center. The EVIDC boasts state-of-the-art technology harnessing the incredible potential of level 2 and 3 chargers, as well as pull-through charging stations. This cutting-edge facility, which is open to the public, is designed to provide tailored solutions for customers to explore for their EV charging needs. In collaboration with Jacksonville's vibrant energy infrastructure, this initiative also aims to revolutionize the city's transportation system, paving the way for a sustainable, greener tomorrow. This month, Evanich, Director of Microgrids at Schneider Electric, sits down with the Chief Strategy Officer of Miller Electric Company, Kerri Stewart, to explore the details behind Miller Electric's Electric Vehicle Innovation Design Center, including the details behind a partnership that is enabling this build, the goal of this revolutionary project, and the promising impact it will have on Florida and beyond. Chris and Kerri, thank you both for being a part of Powering Progress. Tell us more about the EVIDC.
All right, thank you, Denise. Welcome, Kerri. So before we kind of get started, Kerri, can you tell us a little bit about who Miller Electric is?
Absolutely. Thanks for having us, Chris. We really appreciate being here. Miller Electric is an almost 100-year-old family-owned electrical and technology contractor. We're headquartered in Jacksonville, Florida, but we have 16 offices around the United States, and we do serve all 50 states and Canada. So we're doing electrical work all across the country. We primarily focus on data centers and healthcare and industrial. It's all commercial work that we do. And we have about 3,500 employees, and we are fast approaching $1 billion in revenue.
Excellent. That's really exciting. I was reading an article, and it was talking about the electric grid and how it's transitioning to renewable energy and trying to use more battery energy storage. That's exactly what we're doing at your site in Jacksonville, using the microgrid to help support the Electric Vehicle Innovation Design Center. And as a Florida resident myself, I mean, we're really fortunate that the Sunshine State will be incorporating more solar energy. And as the grid does this transition from fossil energy over to more renewables, the other sector is transportation, right? And last year we saw 3 electric vehicles, the top 10 vehicles sold. That's a really big deal. It clearly shows that electric vehicles is going to be our primary form of transportation. And Kerri, I'd like to ask you if you could touch on some of the features of this center, as well as the importance here of electrifying Jacksonville and the surrounding area.
I know you probably know this, Chris, but the first automobile was actually electric.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So we're headed to be full circle now with the EVIDC, as we're calling it, the Electric Vehicle Innovation Design Center. We're going to have a large array of charging options for commercial and passenger vehicles. We'll have 7 level 3 chargers, the DC fast charging. We're going to have 4 level 2 chargers for our longer dwellers, and we're going to have 4 pull-through induction chargers for transit vehicles as well as large heavy fleet vehicles. We also are going to have a solar array. We're going to have backup battery that is going to feed into a microgrid. So the full package solution for any of our customers that are either electrifying their own fleets, or they're putting in charging for their customers or their tenant, or they're a part of the national infrastructure rollout, trying to get fast charging EV convenient so that Americans and North Americans can really adopt EV and have no range anxiety. But we have been doing EV charging installations around the United States and Canada for the last decade. It started in earnest with the Volkswagen settlement funding that came through about a decade ago, a little over a decade ago. So we've installed thousands of charging units, again, all around North America. And these are fleet conversions for big box stores that have in-town delivery. So we have done fleet transitions for transit agencies and for other bus companies.
When we think of like a technology life cycle, electric vehicles, like we're definitely out of that early adopters phase. And I think we're in the strong growth area, right, for vehicle electrification. I just wonder if you're kind of seeing anything built onto this infrastructure within the electric vehicles, anything regarding sustainability, right, trying to lower those emissions for the facilities itself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think electric vehicle charging is a small piece to that much larger conversation that communities and corporations alike are having about sustainability goals and how they are met. And clean air is becoming an ever more precious commodity in a lot of these communities. So how do we have the greatest impact on our environment, on sustainability of that environment? And EV charging is just a small piece of it. And you talked about it, Chris. We're having discussions with our customers that have these large fleets that have the greatest ability to make the biggest impact in the fastest way possible by converting these big fleets that are congesting our highways and our cities. But there are impacts to the grid there that have to be taken into account. And I think that's what you were talking about. Does the grid have enough power to support it? Initially, we were finding that for these large charging installations, the site itself didn't have enough power coming to it. So it was just simply the answer would be, we'll just put in more power. We'll bring more power to the site. And it's happening haphazardly with little planning across the United States. And so utilities are finding themselves playing catch up when it comes to having availability and the power that's needed for what's coming. Because out here in the market, we don't know necessarily what's coming and when it's coming, right? So you have these targets set by the automobile manufacturers of 2035. You have these targets set by corporations and communities of when they want to be sustainable, green, clean, all of the words that they want to be. And the utility is in a game of hurry up and wait. Do they have the generation capacity? And even if they have the generation capacity, do they have the distribution capacity? And if not, we've got to look for solutions like the solution that we're going to have in the EVIDC with our friends at Schneider. And that's a microgrid solution that works with solar and battery backup. It's as much for resiliency as it is working with our utility partners to make sure that we aren't going green and adversely impacting the utility that serves everyone. Lots of talk about those types of larger impacts and solutions as everyone starts to get in the game.
Oh, absolutely. And, you talk about our two firms partnering. Everyone at Schneider is thrilled about partnering with Miller Electric on this project. Schneider, we've been a long-term partner of Miller Electric, providing equipment and services which facilitate that energy future that's efficient and sustainable. Our partnership is helping to leverage microgrids, right, to help use that technology to help lessen the load on the grid. Can you give an overview of some of the other team members that are part of this project as well?
Sure. Well, I mentioned CBRE. They're a financial partner with us in this because they have millions of square feet of commercial real estate around the country. And they're trying to decide what is the best utilization of this space. And so they see the advantages of the EVIDC being able to bring current customers, current tenants, future customers to the site so they can understand how large of a piece of real estate is going to be needed. What do these chargers look like? What advantages would a solar canopy bring to my real estate, to my apartment complex, to my hotel? How large of a facility do you need to have pull-through inductive charging? What does a microgrid really do? How do we install these items? How do we maintain them? We'll also be training facility managers and project managers on the installation, operation, and maintenance of all of this equipment, but we'll also be studying it and using that data with all of our partners, sharing it with all of our partners, not only to help their businesses in the case of CBRE, but for research and development for our partners like Schneider, WB Engineering and Consultants, who are doing a lot of engineering and design work for these large EV installations. Graybar is another partner. They distribute a lot of this equipment and they work with all of these manufacturers. And so what everybody's trying to figure out is how do we best work together? Where does our equipment, our software, our technology, our labor, our manpower, our design work best together for all of our customers? And ultimately that ends up being better for the communities that we all live in.
As we go down this path, electrifying transportation, we understand, yes, it's part of that journey to net zero, And both of our firms, right, we're definitely aligned as we try to increase sustainability by trying to lower emissions. We're providing our energy control center, which is being used to integrate the solar, the batteries, the EV chargers. It's like a USB hub, right? For like a USB hub for a computer, right? You can simply just plug in a monitor, a mouse, a keyboard, everything works. And that's what the energy control center does. It's got autonomous controls, so it allows for real-time decisions. It delivers reliability that everyone's looking for in the project. And it enables the community as well to have a high level of resilience, being able to be reliable, provide services to the community. I was more curious to see what kind of engagement you've gotten so far from the community.
Well, I think it starts even with July 14th. You mentioned it earlier when we did the groundbreaking. You met our mayor. Our mayor's husband just bought an electric vehicle. And so he's very excited about us opening the EVIDC. There simply isn't enough public charging and especially public fast charging available in the Northeast Florida area and in a lot of areas where we work in around the country. So I think the community is already excited about us putting in publicly available fast charging and having that available to them 24 hours a day in a secure, well-lit location in a parking lot that's attached to a commercial facility. It gives them comfort and safety
Sure.
that they can charge and feel safe. What we're also hearing is that we are hearing from schools. The school district is very interested in with their STEM programming and their STEAM programming, having youth come out, walk the site, again, touch it, see what it's all about. Young people tend to be very excited about things when they get a hands-on experience. And so getting more youth in our community interested in science and technology is something that our school district is very involved in. And then from a workforce development standpoint, we're really looking to be able to train and maybe retrain for jobs that may be displaced by the EV industry. You get away from combustible engines, you don't need mechanics anymore. Mm-hmm. Mechanics become more like technicians. And so we see it as a benefit to the community, not only from actually having available public charging 24 hours a day, but also in teaching, training, and retaining employees and bringing our young citizens through the center on field trips to learn about science and technology and see that there's a career path out there for something they could be interested in.
It's really incredible. You talk about the workforce development, and I think of when I first started driving, my dad was teaching me about how to work on the car, and because if it broke down, right, you got to be able to fix it. And I think of how that so much has changed, right? If we think of the kind of the next generation of mechanics or auto technicians, and they're really going to be pretty technology savvy, right? Because you're using a system that's pretty sophisticated. It's got the advanced technology inside of it. It's charging, discharging batteries. So definitely see an increase in skill sets of, I think, electricians, but then also these kind of sophisticated technicians on the vehicles. Obviously, this is an extremely innovative project. What other types of innovative projects has Miller Electric been involved with?
Most recently, we've been working with a company out of Naples, Florida called Ecolution, and they're doing some really interesting work in the transportation space. And they are capturing the kinetic energy from an axle and putting it in battery storage. So think of a semi-tractor trailer, a refrigerated semi-tractor trailer rolling down the road, and the energy created from the axle is now captured and used to power the refrigeration unit in the truck. And so it might not be an electric truck, but it certainly takes a lot of emissions out of the air. So when working through them and their charging technology and their battery technology, we came up with an idea of having their technology on one of our Miller trucks and to mount a charging unit on the back of the truck to do mobile charging and to allow the axle to charge the charger. Because a lot of the charging units that we're seeing come out now have their own battery backup, right? So they're pulling from the grid in non-peak times, so they're keeping the cost down and they're storing that energy. So since they have that ability to store the energy, we're working with Ecolution and their team with a Miller truck and an EV charger so that perhaps road rangers that roam around the states with the different DOTs, they normally carry a can of gas in the back of their truck in case you run out of gas. but there's not really a solution except a flatbed if you run out of energy on the side of the highway. So working with the Department of Transportation here in Florida, working with this company, Ecolution, which is an early stage company, and trying to figure out where are the points where people don't want to adopt EV. They're afraid of being stranded on the side of the road. Here in Florida, we have evacuations for hurricanes. How do we make sure we can responsibly get people out of the community if we don't have a network of fast chargers on their way out of the state or on their way back in? So that's something really interesting we've been working on the last 6 to 9 months with our friends at Ecolution.
Oh, wow, that's really exciting. And I remember when I believe it was Hurricane Irma, I think it was 2017, or I think that's what it was, or Hurricane Irma. Do you remember that's when the state ran out of fuel for like 7 days, right? We had no gasoline, no diesel for before the storm even hit. And I remember people who were evacuating long distances, they that's very risky, right? Because you can only go so far. And if you think of, if you have more and more of these charging stations that are on the highways, and people can go, and if they're powered by a microgrid or even powered just by the utility grid, just a little bit charge up and you can continue to go. So the facility is going to open in November. What do you think is really going to excite some of your customers when they go and see the site?
Well, it sounds very boring, but I think it's going to be the data.
Oh, okay.
Right, because the customers that are using the facility, I think, will just be excited that they are available, and then it's in a clean, safe area, and they're operational, and I mean, they actually work. I think the bane of being an EV driver is you find a charging station, you can see it, you get to it right off the highway, and it doesn't work. And so I think everyone's going to be excited that since it's attached to an electrical contracting company, they can be pretty sure that the charging station is going to be up and running.
Sure.
But not for the retail, but more for our customers that we're doing these fleet conversions, and we're installing the fast charging at their commercial real estate properties, is the data. What's working, what's not working, what sort of configuration is going to work best in the Midwest. It might not be the same in the Northeast. It might be different in Portland, Oregon, certainly than it is in Miami, Florida, right? What atmospherically, what is the best configuration and the best expenditure of my company or my municipality's funding for this type of operation? What do customers like? We hope that while customers are charging, they'll take a small customer experience survey that lets us know why they picked the charger that they did, what their experience has been, and if they're going to be sitting there charging for 15, 30 minutes. So hopefully they'll take some time to give us some feedback that's really valuable for our customers. Excellent. I think what's going to be interesting for our local utility specifically is this solar battery microgrid solution. How does it interact with the grid? How much stress does it take off the grid? How can utilities become better proponents of microgrids rather than typically not really crazy about them? So I think working together with each of the partners who want different pieces of data and to understand the various interactions between the software, the technology, and the human beings. What can we find out about what's happening, where the trends are? Can we spot them before they start to happen? How can we, as we electrify America, how can we be a part of a solution rather than having utilities sort of go into their own corner and municipalities go into their own corner, and ultimately the customer that's trying to charge is sort of like left out of the equation.
I agree with your point. I agree with all those points, and especially the data point. And I think with more data that you have, you can make more informed decisions. You become educated with the system and how it operates and people's interactions as well. And one of the innovative things that Schneider is taking on this project is we're using our EcoStruxure optimization software. So it provides the intelligence and control in this really highly variable environment. And the software is interesting because it uses something called model predictive control. So like if we think of like kind of like the first generation of controls, it was just like linear programming, like cruise control on a car. But what we're using with this model predictive control, it uses data, right, to your point. And what it's going to do is it anticipates futures events based on your past performance and of how you're using energy. If it's sunny, if you have high peaks, high consumption of energy at certain times. So then the controls, then what they're going to allow for the microgrid to do is to do some peak shaving and demand response and self-consumption, manage the utility tariff as well. It looks at is there a probability of a storm coming. Typically outages are correlated with storm, so it may pre-charge the battery up. It tracks your emissions as well, right? So it's going to show you, here's how many tons of carbon emissions that you've been able to offset, that you've been able to save, with the system. Kerri, I was going to ask you, are there any other trends that you're seeing within the energy space?
I think the biggest trend that we've seen and why we have really leaned into the electric vehicle charging market is that electric vehicle charging, it's sort of the wild, wild west out there right now. Everybody thinks they want to get into it. Everybody thinks they want to do it or they need to do it. And it's a part or a piece of a resiliency goal or a clean, renewable goal that they just simply don't know what they don't know.
Okay.
And they think they need level 2 charging and they need 20 of them, and they may really only need one DC level 3 charger. There's just a lot of misinformation or lack of information in the marketplace. So the trend seems to be that people are taking a step back. They're thinking about it more as a solution than we have in the last decade, right? So pots of money would come out, funding would become available, and we would just stick chargers here, there, and everywhere, wherever we could have a publicly available space. They're at libraries. We've got one at the zoo here that's been out there for 10 years. There's one at the daycare center around the corner from us. I don't know how it landed there. It doesn't really ever work. But sort of the haphazard, yes, let's go green and let's install, has turned into a more thoughtful delivery of real solutions that are going to impact our communities for years to come. So I think more thoughtfulness, maybe that's not a trend, but we certainly are seeing customers asking a lot more thoughtful questions and partnerships being created like the one we have with Schneider, that where we sit and we talk about these things. I know we're doing this on a podcast now, but was just up in your research and development facility in Andover a couple of months ago. And we really do sit around and have these kinds of conversations. And I think that's what's trending in our industry.
Terrific. Well, I have one more question for you. It's something that we always ask all of our guests on this podcast is, what is one innovation that excites you at the moment?
I think the promise of battery storage and the ability to deploy it to places where it's needed most. Battery storage and electricity, to be able to have that readily available from a renewable source, whether it's the sun or the axle of a semi-tractor trailer, having the ability to deploy energy where it's needed in a renewable fashion through batteries is an innovation that we're studying very closely, because the data centers that I told you we do data centers, they all have backup battery and storage, but they're huge, they're enormous, and they only work for a very short period of time. So I think for me, that's where my interest is, because I know, technology is advancing in leaps and bounds right now, but I think that's a place where it really helps create a solution that we don't quite have yet.
Excellent. I agree completely. Well, Kerri, we really appreciate your time. You gave us some great insights today. Thank you very much. Kerri Stewart, Chief Strategy Officer of Miller Electric. Thank you very much.
Appreciate you guys.
The content of this podcast is for informational purposes only. Should not be undertaken as financial, economic, legal, business, tax, or investment advice. The information, statements, views, and opinions should not be construed as the provision of advice by Schneider Electric or as an offer to buy or sell any products or services or to make or consider any investment or course of action.